You guys ever play a game and it feels like it was specifically made to cater to your personal tastes? For me, that's Iron Meat. It's also a case where the game doesn't do anything super inventive or new, but what it does have is made with so much love and polish that it doesn't really matter. Iron Meat is essentially a classic running gun, a Contra clone to put it simply. This might make you think of Blazing Chrome, which is another cool game in the same genre, but that is more of a tribute to Contra hardcore, while Iron Meat takes after the Alien Wars, only without this goddamn Mode 7 stages. I hate this shit. Okay, so what is this game about? Well, xenobiologist Yuri Markov was doing some science stuff on his research base on the moon, then science stuff broke containment and did him, and after assimilating the entire base, it began a full-scale invasion on Earth that you have to stop. There are many skins to unlock, but by default you're playing as this guy. Or, if you don't like being a jarhead, you can always become a banana. There is a bit more to the game's backstory, but that's the general gist of it. Grab a gun and off you go. As far as basic gameplay goes, there is nothing new here. You run, jump, shoot your gun in 8 directions, and pick up new guns represented by these letters. You can also hold the button to aim without moving, which has been a Contra staple since the Alien Wars. Unfortunately, you cannot slide like in Hardcore or fix your aim while moving like in Shattered Soldier. When it comes to your arsenal, aside from the default weapon, you get 8 different guns, only 3 of which are straight carryovers from Contra, strangely enough. Those are the machine gun, the laser, and the flamethrower. Even the most coveted letter S doesn't give you the traditional spread gun and looks more like a shotgun that shoots up to 5 projectiles in a relatively narrow spread. There is also a surprising omission of a homing weapon. That isn't to say that any of the weapons are bad though. The worst one of the bunch is probably the... I'm not sure what the letters actually stand for, the P-gun, that shoots a barrage of weaker but more numerous projectiles. And it isn't bad really, just not as impressive as the others. And even then it probably depends on your personal preference. Most people don't like the laser, but that damage is pretty sweet. I never thought, ugh, this shit sucks, whenever I picked up a weapon I didn't want. Okay, I did, but that's because you can upgrade your weapons by picking up the same weapon twice like in Contra 4, and naturally you lose the upgrade whenever you get a different weapon. There are also 2 temporary power-ups that either make you shoot bullets in all directions like this, or increase your firing rate. After an early update, picking up the same weapon thrice also temporarily increases your firing rate, so you have an incentive to stick to your guns through the whole game. The game plays great in general. The controls are very smooth and maneuvering between tight formations of enemies and projectiles is pure joy. It also helps that the screen is always perfectly readable, since backgrounds usually use colder and darker colors to help enemies stand out. Projectiles are also color-coded. For the most part, player projectiles are light blue, light green or bright red, while enemy projectiles are orange, dark green or blood red. Thanks to this, you will never get confused who is shooting what. Visibility is great overall with a few unfortunate exceptions. And since we're talking about seeing things, let's check out the graphics. Iron Meat looks really nice. Despite the muted colors, backgrounds are really well detailed, very gorily detailed sometimes. Some of them are also pretty busy with animations as well, but they never distract from the main action. This smoke from a helicopter crash in particular reminds me of Neo Geo games a little. The enemy design is also amazing, though in this case I have to admit to some personal biases. I have already mentioned in my Dallas video how much I like this sort of visceral monster design, and Iron Meat is all about that. The people have turned into different kinds of mutants, the vehicles have these unnatural organic growths that turn them into living monsters, there are random crates spitting meatballs at you, there is this elevator in a city level that endlessly barfs out meat monsters, hell if I know where they come from. There are these meat growths that look like those inexplicable wall mouths in Contra, and at certain points, your path will be blocked by these literal giant ropes of meat. It's all gross, disgusting, and I absolutely love it. Ironically, my least favorite design is the final boss because it just doesn't look as visceral as the others. The game's visual aesthetics are great all around, and the sound is not far behind. The effects all work well, none of them are ear grating. I think that the player character's voice is a bit too deep, but that's just me nitpicking. Then there's the soundtrack. You already heard some of it if you watched the video this far, thank you by the way. And it's almost all like this, just one banger after another. The music is so good that I actually bought the soundtrack on Steam, which is something I don't usually do. But if you don't want to buy it, the composer has all of it on his YouTube channel. You really should give it a listen later. I absolutely love everything about this game's aesthetic presentation. Blasting meat monsters while heavy metal is blasting from my speakers? This is what them kids on the interwebs call absolute cinema nowadays. But let's go back to playing the game. The difficulty is on the easier side initially. On normal you get 16 lives to start with, and the first few levels are pretty easy to get through without dying once. And that's not to mention all the extra lives you earn during the playthrough. The stages do become progressively tougher, and avoiding damage altogether becomes much harder later on, but the amount of lives the game gives you seriously diminishes the overall difficulty. But that's on normal. The game is absolutely merciless on hard. You start with only 8 lives and there are many more enemies charging at you at once, and those that don't die from a single bullet are much tougher. I actually game overed on the 4th stage because I died and couldn't get through this place with a default pea shooter. I am a little ashamed to admit that I still haven't beaten this game on hard. So yeah, it's quite challenging. Speaking of the stages, there isn't much variety to them beyond their setting. Stage 2 is the traditional vertical climb, and I want to point out that you can actually drop down without dying to the bottomless abyss at the edge of a screen. Genuinely, thank you for this. Stage 4 has some neat environmental interaction, where you have to destroy certain targets to close off enemy spawn points, and Stage 7 is an autoscroller. In all other stages, you simply run from left to right and sometimes jump over bottomless pits. There isn't even a bike level that has been a Contra staple since the Alien Wars. From what I gather, the dev experimented with it, but it simply didn't stick. So, variety isn't the game's strongest suit, but thankfully the core gameplay is designed well enough to carry the entire game. And that's not to mention all the aesthetical fluff around it. Though again, it simply hits all the right notes with my personal taste specifically, which may not be the case for you. But still, I cannot recommend this game enough. Iron Meat is an amazing Contra clone, and if you like this sort of games, you should absolutely get it. And I would actually advise you to buy it on Steam specifically, because you will be able to play it online with your friends thanks to the remote play together feature. The game is still being actively worked on as well. A large update was released this May which added the flamethrower and the P-gun, and also introduced new gameplay modes. Arcade, where you have to beat the game in one go with limited continues, and mirror mode for people who prefer running from right to left. There are also different mutators that change the game in a variety of ways. So, if the hard difficulty wasn't enough, you can always turn up the heat. I'm not sure how you'd get through this, but this is something you can do. Apparently there are also new levels on the way, so there's still something to get excited about in the game's future. Thank you for watching, dear viewer. If you liked the video, you know what to do. Keep on rocking and I'll see you next time.